Angeles. I get to say y'all because I went to the University of Georgia. And great to have you with us today. We're live, as always, weekdays here on Fancred. Appreciate you coming aboard. We've got some great guests today. Coming up here shortly, we'll have Jay Crawford, solid gold guy, great guest. And we're going to take a look at the Browns, against our better judgment, I might add, the Browns coaching vacancy. Browns are tweeting out the guys that they are interviewing. I saw Kevin Stefanski is interviewing, I guess, today. First of all, why are you tweeting that out if you're the Browns, number one? And number two, why are you interviewing Kevin Stefanski? But so we're going to talk to Jay, though, here in a second in Cleveland. Friend of the show, great guy. You know him and you love him. You know you do. Longtime ESPN guy, pioneer, really, in sports television, Jay Crawford. And later in the show, we're going to be joined by the mastermind behind Tankathon. Matt Hoover will join us, and we'll find out how that thing all happened, started. It's like got this cult following. I think it's safe to say, Cam Smith, by the way, is our producer. Cam, I think it's safe to say Tankathon has a cult following. And so it's all about teams tanking and chronicling that, following the teams as they're tanking. So if you go to Tankathon, you know, just like it sounds, one word on Twitter, Matt does an amazing job following the teams that are terrible and may or may not be tanking. But I'm really excited to have him, man, because this is a big subject for me, philosophically, especially as it pertains to, well, really all of pro sports. But I want to also note that Pat McAfee will join us at the top of the hour, 1 o'clock Eastern time. And then after Pat, we'll have Bo Curran will join us. Bo Curran from Boston to talk Scooby Snacks, and Tom Curran will also pop on, maybe, to talk Patriots if we feel like having him on. No, Tom Curran, NBC Sports Boston will join us. The Godfather, the OG, the Oracle, Patriots Insider, Tom Curran. You know, I hate that term, good people, right? Cliche. You know, your grandma your grandma used it too many times, wore it out. But he defines good people, Tom Curran. Seriously, and I'm looking you straight in the eye when I say that, because he is the best. All these guys, what an unbelievable lineup. Not just, hey, you know who these people are and they're relevant, but all good people. So that's what it looks like. We've got Jay coming up from Cleveland. Then we're going to do Tankathon. Then we're going to have Pat on. And then we're going to have Tom on. And Bo Curran, by the way, is his dog. And we love him. And hopefully he'll make an appearance. Because so far, I think we're on a streak with Tom. Tom 5 times. Friend of the show. Every single time I think Bo Curran has been on demand. Right? Because I've demanded that he's on. And of course, we've seen guests over these 5 months we've done the show. We've got to meet a lot of dogs. That's what's so great about this show and this format, this conversational type thing that we do. So as we await Jay Crawford, today I was really, really, really doing a lot of prep because we've got Pat McAfee on. And Pat McAfee, I'm so glad he's on today because he's a guy that I, want an excuse to talk about, because having been in the radio and television talk show business for, well over 2 decades in like every position possible, what he's doing, what Pat McAfee is doing on DAZN and Westwood One, syndicated nationally, nobody else is doing it. Nobody. He truly is in the best possible way a disruptor. And we need people like that in sports and sports media. Someone who is not afraid, and when he speaks, he's talking, not somebody else or not some staged thing. And as somebody who has done all manner of talk shows, right? I've been a solo host like we are right now. I've been co-host. I've been ensemble show. I've done all that stuff. I've done play-by-play by myself with partners, you name it. What's really interesting about Pat McAfee's talk show, and by the way, get the Zone, get the app, and just get it and watch his show. And you don't have to watch the other stuff because he covers everything and he's informed. He's great. Well, we're going to talk about him in a second, and he's going to be coming on here in a few minutes. But Jay Crawford is with us from Northeast Ohio, Cleveland, better known as Cleveland. And we're going to talk about the Cleveland Browns and their coaching. Why are you laughing, Jay? It's a reflex.
Brooks, it's the way you said it.
Right. Now, is Cleveland Northeast Ohio?
Yeah.
All right. Just checking. So, Jay, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you popping on.
Hey, no problem.
And so what's going on? I mean, what do you make of what's happening with the Browns as they try to fill that vacancy?
It's a really difficult puzzle to click together for a variety of reasons. One, the ownership group has been anything but consistent. They've tried filling the head coaching vacancy a number of times where they take the lead. They finally, after realizing that their track record was horrible and the fan base was losing all faith in them doing it, decided to entrust that to their general manager last time in John Dorsey. And that didn't work either. The Freddie Kitchens experiment was brief. I think it was obvious to everyone almost immediately that it was just way too big for him. And I think because of the way it played out, you probably had the Haslams losing faith in Dorsey doing it again because it went so wildly sideways this time around. And remember, during the offseason, there was so much buzz about this team because Baker was coming off a record-setting rookie year. You had Nick Chubb and a guy that, if not for the 2 carries at the end of the last game of the year that pushed him over 1,000 yards and then back under 1,000 yards, he would have been a rookie back that went for 1,000 yards. You had Jarvis Landry, and you brought in a gentleman in OBJ and a Hunt that clearly added big pieces of weaponry to the offense. And then you entrust that to a guy who had never been a coordinator.
It's like a child with a Ferrari. That literally is.
Perfect
analogy. The perfect analogy. Right.
Perfect analogy. And what we saw was he didn't know what to do with all of those pieces, and very few offensive minds probably would. But the other thing that when I say it was bigger than him, it was impossible for him to manage the play calling duties while he was trying to be the CEO. He was swimming way over his head, and so I think management just finally decided that, we thought Dorsey was the guy to take us to where we wanted to go, but the fact that he picked Freddie and it really put this franchise in neutral for another year, they decided that they were just going to move on from all of it and, as they say, shake up the Etch-a-Sketch and start all over again.
So I think the X factor here, the wild card, and this really ultimately pertains to the Haslams and what they're doing, what they represent as the owners of this franchise for the next couple of decades, right? For a long time going forward, what the prospects are for the Browns organization. Paul DePodesta. I think the fact that you've got that guy there, he's not on site. Nope. I mean, if you don't know anything about Paul DePodesta, I only know him as the Dodgers general manager, right?
Right.
Baseball, sure. Right? It's bizarre.
That's Moneyball. I mean, it's
a Moneyball guy, right? Exactly. So, but here's the thing. And now we're going to hire the coach before the general manager, right? To me, this all is reflective of the Haslams trying to maintain total control, but using a guy like DePodesta as cover, right? In this situation. It's absurd. So, I mean, what's your read on the Haslams? And do the Haslams, is it possible that they could rise to the level of meddling or at least having an adverse effect on the Browns in the way Jerry Jones has on the Cowboys? Or is that too much to suggest?
I think they make Jerry Jones look like he's going in the right direction.
Really?
Well, Brooks, the slap on.
Well, I guess you're right. Yeah.
Well, the slap on the Cowboys is they've been mired in mediocrity, right? I mean, 8-8 isn't going to get it done. Well, we do backflips for 8-8. Remember, here's what we've had to work with: 2-14, 0-16, 1-15, 7-8-1, 6-10. You know, look, I don't think anybody wants to be the 8-8 and the last team to miss the playoffs, but for the Cleveland Browns, that would be a step in the right direction. Jerry has a body of work, at least, where he can say, whether it was Jerry pulling the strings or whether it was Jimmy Johnson and other people that obviously knew what they were doing, he has a collection of rings.
And they've got a good team. I mean, they got talent.
And they do. Now, they're underachievers. I think Jerry's mistake is the opposite of the Haslams. He stuck with Jason Garrett way too long. And I finally decided that this guy wasn't going to be the one to get him to where they wanted to go. So we made a change. So his mistake is opposite of the Haslams. The Haslams' mistake is twofold. One, they can't hire the right guy. And that leads to their second problem is they can't let anything stick for more than 2 seasons. And my thing is, when you know it's the wrong hire, move on. It's not going to suddenly become the right hire. Particularly when the lack of leadership was as apparent as it was in the Kitchens regime, and the play calling was. Remember, this is a team that, with all this talent, had 9 tries on 1st and goal, which started at the 1 and couldn't score a touchdown. It was ineptitude like I've never seen.
Right. And a guy that couldn't run a meeting
because there was no talent on that team.
Unbelievable.
So Haslam, I think if you asked most of the fans in Cleveland if they would do a swap, Haslam straight up for Jerry Jones, they wouldn't even hesitate.
Wow. I also, though, think that speaks to the media, unfortunately ignoring. Let me put it this way. I think the Cowboys will never get to the Super Bowl as long as Jerry Jones keeps doing a regularly scheduled radio show and holding court in the locker room after the game. Because even if he's saying something positive, he's undermining the coaching staff in that the players. Right. And so I think that is a fundamental catastrophic issue. And the media is essentially covering it up, pretending it doesn't exist. It's extraordinary. It's unprecedented in our lifetime, in the history of the National Football. No owner has ever done this, and it's 25 years of awful. I mean, he's done it the whole time, the radio show and such. But
Jared bought this team because he wanted to be the star, Brooks.
Totally. And, you know, what's funny is people are talking about they need us. Go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say you just can't have a situation where the owner is the biggest star in the market, and that's what Jerry wants. And
right.
You just can't have that. And I know that Jerry does lean back on his Super Bowls from the early years, but I think those happened in spite of Jerry, not because of Jerry. Mm-hmm. And to your point, which is, by the way, dead on. And the media, I don't know that they're giving him cover so much as they know that this is the way it is. This is the way it's.
They like it. Well, hell, we love it. I would want it that way.
He talks to them.
Right.
You know, so they're going to give him cover because as long as he's providing headlines and clickbait sound bites, keep it coming, Jerry.
Yeah, I have attended, and we're visiting, of course, with Jay Crawford in Cleveland. And what's funny is that I say that and I forget. I have guys on from Dallas. Dewey Scruggs comes on. Clarence Hill Jr. comes on. And I'll say that stuff. I'll make that big pronouncement to them, and they'll just sit there and wait for me to finish. And they say, we love him. We love it.
Yeah.
That's I mean, and Clarence says, the longest running beat reporter since like 1989, the Fort Worth Star Telegram. He's always the guy you see right next to Jerry Jones asking all the questions. So I have to remember that. And it's not really giving him cover. It's why not? But here's what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that Podesta is the issue here. Period.
I
To me,
agree.
in that organ,
And by the way,
period.
I believe his contract is either up tomorrow or
Really?
it's in this cycle. It's in this offseason cycle, which is fascinating, Brooks, because in the absence of a general manager, he has essentially taken the role of point man on this search for the head coach. Now, the thinking locally here is that Stefanski is his guy. He would like either Stefanski or Schwartz, but I think there is
unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I know, but here's why: those guys are more invested and entrenched in the analytics school, which is obviously his lifeline.
All right.
The thinking is if McDaniels comes, he's going to bring some personnel with him from New England, and they're going to have their way, and it's not going to be Paul's way. And there will be friction, and likely if McDaniels, and this is just my speculation, I have no inside intel. It's my speculation that if McDaniels ends up with the gig, he's probably not going to want to dance with Paul, and I wouldn't blame him. So you may, in the very near term here, see the Browns going in a different direction if it ends up being McDaniels. If it ends up being, and by the way, I thought it was interesting that yesterday the NFL Network was reporting after the Schwartz interview that he seems to be the favorite internally. I wonder where they got that bit of information.
What does that mean? Who's there? Who's in the building? I don't even know.
Let's go back to what I said a while ago. Right now, the Haslams have entrusted Podesta to handle the search. So he would be the one that I would think would know.
He's not even in the building half the time. He doesn't live in Cleveland.
Doesn't live here. And I think if they're going to continue with Paul, that would be a mandate from ownership that if you're going to run this thing, you're going to be here. And let's face it, whatever job you can do from California running the Browns, whatever that is on a 0 to 100, it's going to be markedly better if you're here touching the product every day. You're in the building. You're building relationships. You can't do a job like this from a satellite location. It can't be done.
You know, it kind of reminds me of Flying J, their business, right? I mean, that's a satellite business where you have all these locations and franchises and you kind of run it that way. That's kind of what represents for division with Jake Crawford in Cleveland. And so, but for me, this all comes down to Haslam having control and Haslam being in charge and not giving that up and meddling. And as long as Podesta is there, that's what's going to continue to take place. But you said maybe he'll be out, and that might happen if McDaniels gets the job. But how could McDaniels possibly get the job? But I want to focus on one thing, though, and because I'm probably behind, on this subject. For some reason, I kind of missed the boat on it. But tell us what happened with John Dorsey. He was a kitchens guy, right?
Yeah.
So what happened? How did he get fired? Who stuck the knife in? And was this a Podesta or a Haslam or what happened?
I'll do a whole lot of speculating because that's really all this is. We don't know what the full behind the scenes story is yet because nobody really talked about it. I'm just going to connect some dots. It's wildly speculative, and I certainly wouldn't take this as gospel. This is just based on some things that I've seen.
It's informed.
Okay. It's my opinion that after Dorsey's falling out in Kansas City, where he had a very strong-handed and accomplished head coach in Andy Reid, that he didn't want to fall into another situation where there was a power struggle between he and a big-name head coach.
Right.
While I thought there was a chance that the Browns might try to bring in a big-name head coach or at least somebody that had a body of work, and I was thinking maybe that would be Mike McCarthy, it's just my speculation here that it was easier for John to go with a coach that would feel forever indebted to him and isn't strong-handed, doesn't have a long resume to lean back on. say, look, I know what I'm doing here, John. You're going to have to trust me. It was easier for him to maintain full control over roster and personnel and still be the biggest guy in the room if he went with a completely unproven commodity in Freddie Kitchens, who, remember, had never been a coordinator in the NFL.
Right.
He was a running backs coach, quarterback coach. He did have success with the offense as he was the OC.
Was there an affinity? Was there an affinity between Haslam, who's a Southerner? That's kind of a ridiculous statement. Do you think there might have been an affinity there with Kitchen, and maybe why Haslam ceded to lean to Kitchens if Dorsey wanted him? And of course, Dorsey was new. Sorry to interrupt you.
I do think that in John saw this was an opportunity that all GMs look for when they come in and they have an inherited group around them. There's always that struggle for power. Who's got the owner's ear? And it was my impression that once it was obvious that the Hugh Jackson experiment was over, that John said, okay, here's my opportunity. I can put my fingerprints on this thing now and see where we go.
Right.
I also think that, and if you watch Hard Knocks, when the Browns featured last season, one of the very first episodes, you saw, and I was there at training camp that day, you saw a little verbal spat between the coordinators. And I immediately was like, these guys are already fighting over Hugh's carpet. They knew he was coming off an 0-16, and they knew he was 1-15 prior to that. They knew he was dead man walking. So I really think that you had Todd Haley, who was the OC, fighting with Greg Williams, who was the DC, to see who was going to be the guy that exerted their control, who was going to come out in this battle of coordinators to replace Hugh. And I thought that was a bad sign from jump.
Right.
I think when John was forced to make a decision and he picked Greg as the head coach, things immediately went sideways with Haley, who wasn't happy with it, and he was dismissed too. That opened the door for Freddie to go from quarterback coach to OC.
Right.
And if you remember, last year their schedule was set up similar to what it was in 2019. They had a very favorable schedule in the second half. So they beat up on a lot of bad teams, made Baker look probably better than he was, made Freddie look better than he was.
Really?
And Dorsey thought, look, we've got a lot of positive momentum here. So we're going to go with Freddie Kitchens. And Williams was dismissed altogether.
Right.
It was, by the way, I don't know if I told you this, but I was doing some research when I was looking at the Browns head coaching history. I went all the way back to 1989. That's when Marty Schottenheimer was fired. Brooks, you can go all the way back to, and that's 30 years. You can go back 30 years. The Browns have had, I think, 11 or 12 head coaches. All of them were under 500 during their time here, except for one. And that was Greg Williams, who they fired after last season.
Yeah. Boy, we could talk about that guy.
As an interim.
He's a very interesting guy, and we all know his history, and
we do.
You kind of wonder what's going on there. Right. But if I was to pick between those two guys, a guy that I would want to have, as a coach on my team, it would not be Todd Haley, because this sort of thing really does seem to follow him around. Not so much with Williams. I mean, Williams has some issues, right? Of course, but look, the last thing, and I really appreciate all the time, Jay. Thank you so much. Sure. But the last thing is, can Baker Mayfield play?
That's the $64,000 question, because we're going to find out in year 3. Now, look, he's being hamstrung by the fact that this will be his 4th head coach as he starts his 3rd NFL season. Think about that for a second. He's a number 1 overall draft pick, and he's going on his 4th head coach in year number 3. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that's an indictment of him, but it's certainly not an endorsement of skill set, because if he was dominant enough and he was definitely the guy, you wouldn't be looking for number 4 as you start.
What's your read? What's your personal read? Can he play?
My personal read is somewhere in the middle lies the truth. He's not as good as we saw his rookie season, and he's not as bad as we saw last year. But I saw a lot of regression. I saw him make a lot of bad decisions. I saw him, and this is something that was never discussed. I couldn't figure out why, but there was a very controversial play call in the season when Brown decided to go for it on 4th long, and the play call was a run play, didn't work.
Right. Yeah. Right. I remember that.
Booed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was at the game, so I couldn't tell whether or not Baker checked out of the play. But when I got home, I looked at the tape, and he did check out of the play. And after the game, Freddie fell on the sword and said it was a bad call. Never said he made a bad call. Never said Baker checked into a bad call. But you can clearly hear Baker audible at the line. And so, although Freddie took all of the heat in the media, I haven't seen anybody write or talk about this.
Man, I got to go back and look at that film. That's the kind of thing we do on this show.
You'll clearly hear Baker checks the play at the line. And I've talked to some guys that played in the league for years. I sent them the play. I asked them, and some of these guys were NFL quarterbacks. And I said, tell me, did Baker check into the play? And they said, based on everything I know and how NFL offenses run in those situations, typically 2 plays will be called. If you're checking to the second play, there will be an audible that the quarterback will shout at the line. And he did. And they ran. And it was everybody in the stadium was like, what in the world are we looking at? It cost us the football game, essentially.
And one other quick example, and this is not to defend Freddie Kitchens, but there was a big pile on, especially as the year went along. And the OBJ exchange, there may have been more than one, but one that happened at the end that was a really high-profile one in the last couple of games, where OBJ appeared to be yelling at Freddie Kitchens, but it turned out he wasn't.
Right.
He was trying to point out that the refs were screwing with him to Freddie. Yeah. And
that's exactly what happened. But the game before that, there was a pretty heated discussion between Jarvis Landry and Freddie on the sideline. It was just a bad look. I mean, it was in back-to-back weeks. You had your 2 premier wide receivers going essentially at it with their head coach. Now, to the OBJ point, OBJ was just making a point to Freddie. And it wasn't necessarily, OBJ berating him for his play call. Right. It was obvious there was no respect. There was no leadership. It's what happens, Brooks, when the substitute teacher becomes the permanent teacher. It's tough to do. And that's not to say that you can't take a position coach and turn him into a head coach. It's very difficult to do that when you're in the same organization, because everybody in that organization looked at, there's good guy Freddie, always popping off jokes. He's the quarterback's coach. A lot of fun, that Freddie. Then he becomes in charge. And it's tough for the players sometimes to look at him and see him in any other way than what they've always known him as a position coach.
You know who's a substitute teacher too, in kind of a different way? Jason Garrett, because the real teacher is Jerry Jones. It's a little. I think. I mean, that's what to me Jason Garrett represents. Man, I wish I could talk to you for like 3 hours. I'm going to call you and bug you today, but because I got a lot more questions. What's going on with the Kansas City? I'm a Kansas City guy, as you know. What's going on with the Kansas City stuff, the gear? What do you got there?
I've been taking a lot of grief for that today.
Why?
Because I'm a diehard Indians fan.
Okay.
So the story behind this is after the Royals won the World Series, I was doing a series of shows in Arizona at their spring training camp. And some of the guys that I was a huge Indians fan, and they gave me this and a Royal hat in an attempt to try to bribe my fandom away from division rival Cleveland.
Forget it.
It's a nice sweatshirt. I like it. I had a physical therapist. I had knee surgery last Thursday. I was doing PT today. On my way out of the house, I just grabbed the sweatshirt for my physical therapy session. This is what I happened to grab.
No, I don't believe it. I don't. You can try to explain it away. Sorry, but hey, it's swag, man.
I was gonna peel it off. Honestly, I was gonna peel it off, and then I thought, you know what, Brooksy do play-by-play for the Royals.
Yeah, I actually did.
Still appreciate this.
Right. Well, really, that's pretty cool because I was looking straight into the camera the whole time and I hadn't seen it. I looked down. I'm like, what the hell is that? That's all.
Yeah, I know.
But so thanks so much, man. Really, really appreciate it. We got to talk some Buckeyes next time. Thanks a lot, Jay.
Always, brother.
That's Jay Crawford with us from WKYC in Cleveland. And in case you don't know, Jay, Jay is an ESPN guy. He was for a long time and was a pioneering broadcaster for ESPN. Also was in Tampa. He was in Columbus when I was in Columbus. And We've been longtime friends for over 2 decades. One of the best people you'll ever meet, Jay Crawford, but also now doing news and has his own show, midday show. They put a whole show together for him for one of the big stations in Cleveland. So he is loving life. And that is a big deal for him to wear that kid. He did do it for me because he would never do that. He's one of those guys, old guys like me, that baseball means too much to him, especially the Indians. So that's Jay Crawford. Coming up, Pat McAfee will join us later in the show, and Tom Curran as well. But right now we're going to talk to somebody who is a mythic figure with a cult following. I'll just get those cliches out there at the very beginning, get rid of them. Matt Hoover of Tankathon is joining us. Matt, I really appreciate the time, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
You know what's funny is it's almost like you have to have a certain personality profile to be the guy. Like, I'm a guy who I like watching Premier League relegation games. Hey, who's going to get, go back down to the first division? I mean, do you kind of have that built into your personality? Is that what kind of leads you into this?
Well, I root for West Ham, so we've been in.
Same here. Yeah, right.
Nice. Oh, cool.
Blood for punishment.
Yeah, I mean, I made the site just sort of out of necessity when Derrick Rose got hurt for the second time, and I was just rooting for the Bulls draft pick. So,
yeah, well, take us through that, man. I mean, because we both know, dude, you are somebody that the big boys follow. And I mean, in multiple sports, it's really, really cool. And it's just a pure thing that what you do is just providing information to people. But it's the kind of information that, again, there's, I think, a lot of people like me that who sucks and who really is tanking and who just sucks and they're incompetent. So take us through the process where you started to say, wait a minute. Okay, we did the Derrick Rose thing, but maybe we should add some capacity here. Maybe we should open things up. Why did you do that? What was the whole story?
I mean, so I made the site to track the Bulls draft pick originally, and I noticed there wasn't really any other resource out there for showing the live draft order. And as a fan of a bad team at the time, it was really one of the only places to find some optimism. I mean, you're embracing the losing for ultimate optimism. It's kind of tricky, some hoops to jump through, but it works. And then, other sports was just a natural development after that.
So I've got a lot of questions for you. And to me, the NBA is a really fascinating part of this. And I see you got such a great Twitter feed and the NFL as well. And what's interesting to me is, in particular, a team like the Dolphins, right? Who, they're tanking. It's all over. They're trading the whole team. And wait a minute, they just beat the Patriots, right? In New England. I mean, just what is your assessment of what happened with the Dolphins this year?
I think the team management and the team were on board with tanking and did everything they could in order to lock up a good draft pick. But I mean, it's pretty clear the players and coaches don't tank, so they're going to try
brothers.
And Brian Flores did a great job, and it's pretty satisfying season, I think, for Dolphins fans. Probably get Tua still, but had some fun with the wins.
Right. So do you this is a big thing for me, and I'm really happy you're on, because I talk about, nobody else talks about this for some reason, but this whole principle of tanking, the word tanking is the implication that, okay, we're not really incompetent, we're doing it on purpose, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't get ourselves into this. We're the smart guys, and we're purposefully doing this, right?
Sometimes.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say is, I mean, is there really tanking? I mean, is it a misnomer? I mean, what you just described, I think, is probably the most likely scenario for almost every team, because there has to be pushback from the players and the coaches, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 76ers were a prime example of actual tanking, Sam Hinkie. And the Dolphins, what they did this year, I think, is the most clear tanking in the NFL that I'm aware of.
Now, is that because of the trades they made, or the personnel decisions they made?
I mean, what are they traded guys mid-season for like second-round picks. It was just clear their whole fan base was on board with it this year as well, it seemed. but yeah, the players and coaches don't do it. An example of unintended tanking is like what the Bulls are doing this year. I guess they wanted to make the playoffs, but they still suck, and they're
yeah, it's very entertaining. Jim Boylan is like the pinata of pro sports. What's your take on him and what's going on? What's going on with him? Go ahead.
I think he'd be a good assistant coach, like he was in the past. I know on Twitter people point out he like calls out other teams' plays all the time, and he knows basketball clearly, but he's just like a football coach, gym teacher, shoved into the NBA and doesn't really work clearly. Right.
So when you're looking, we're visiting with Matt Hoover, the founder of Tankathon, and so when you're looking at the NBA right now, all right, I've got a couple of teams I want to ask you about. The Knicks, because you're following these teams, and you are the guy that's really following, in particular, the teams at the bottom and assessing their performance. And I'm sure there are trends where, oh, wait, they're actually trying now. Wait, the front office is actually trying to do something. Wow, Steve Mills actually stepped out of the building for 5 minutes and things are going better. But what's your assessment of the Knicks? Is there any plan? Has there ever been a plan? And where are they going?
I think the plan was Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, but that didn't happen. That wasn't even close to happening, it looks like. So they did what they could by signing all these, like, I think they signed a lot of 2-year deals with power forwards. So if I were them, that is a smart strategy if you do that and then make trades of those guys to contenders and get a draft pick back. You get something out of your cap room that you wasted or spent. But the Knicks, I mean, their roster is pretty bad. I'm pretty low on the Knicks' future right now, but
yeah, get in line.
I don't know.
Get in line.
Yeah,
that's a long line.
I took a lot of crap for criticizing the Kevin Knox pick from Knicks fans over Michael Porter, and right at the moment, Michael Porter looks pretty good. We'll see how he holds up, though.
Well, let's just look at the NBA right now, because to me, that's the hot tankathons for me personally right now. And I know you do NHL and you do baseball, right?
Yeah,
of course.
Football, yeah.
And the NFL. And do you ever mix it up with college? You ever look at that? I mean, it's a totally different animal. But do you have any angle on that or thought on that?
Only when it comes to scouting for the draft.
Okay.
Like my site only is centered around the draft process. So like Premier League, I couldn't really do anything with that, or college can't really do anything with that.
Well, if there's, and I don't know if you follow this team, you probably do because of the draft and all that, and they're in the SEC. But if there was ever a team, I mean, obviously you wouldn't tank. There's no freaking draft in college football. But Joe Moorhead at Mississippi State is probably the closest thing, because of the suspensions and how they decided to tank games, and who was going to play. Well, it was the most bizarre situation and probably the most underreported situation in sports last year.
See, I don't even really know about that. But I do know this year, didn't Houston redshirt their quarterback midway through the year? Yeah.
De'Aaron King.
Yeah.
We talked about it on the show. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. Do you remember the guy, the player for Houston that came out and called out Dana Holgerson?
No.
For what they were doing? Oh, yeah. One of the players, because Holgerson had also asked him, he was like a guy who had 17 knee surgeries, and he was like a 7th-year senior. And so he's just like, thank God I'm going to get out of here finally. And Holgerson went to him and said, we need you to come back. It's all about him. It's all about Dana. It's all about the coach.
Yeah. That's rough if you commit to a school, then you're just one of the people, and then they redshirt their star player maybe in your last year, and it's your last chance to win. I don't know. That could be upsetting. So
give me the teams that are tanking in the NBA right now.
Let me look. Let's see. I think the Warriors, I guess, but I mean, that's just sort of fell into it.
What do you think about Steve Kerr? Here's the thing. Whenever I bring this up, when we have NBA people on, they just move on. They won't even listen to me. They laugh. Look, you can't judge the guy. Yeah, you can. I mean, is this at all a reflection of Steve Kerr at all? I mean, can he affect it a little bit? I mean, what I'm asking you, your professional opinion, what you see from the Warriors. Do you think Steve Kerr has packed it in himself, or is he actually trying to coach?
I don't really have a feel for that so much, but I assume he's not trying his hardest, I guess, this year. I mean,
well, he always looks laid back, though.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
But
well, just remember Luke Walton at Golden State, right? when he had that amazing record, and you know,
I mean, I think they're not playing Draymond as much as they would if they were trying to win. I think that's part of it. I think he doesn't probably care much about the record this year.
Yeah. It's just, do you find it interest? I don't know. It's a really interesting psychological study. I'm really old, dude. And I can tell you, man, the ticket prices right now for the NBA, but for everything, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You have to invest your life into, your team now. It wasn't always that way at all. It's really changed. Mm-hmm. And so you put that in the context of, willful losing. And do you ever sit back and say, or kind of have have a kind of a reality check, like, and a great example would be this year, the Dolphins, because the entire media had picked up on that narrative. And of course, Brian Flores wasn't picking up on the narrative, and we saw what happened later. But I remember thinking, Matt, I don't know, do you ever think, man, how do they get people to show up at the stadium and spend money?
Yeah. I know with when the Bulls have been really bad in the past, I've gone just to see the rookie that I'm excited about or something. Right, always sort of looking to the future. But yeah, I mean, I'm not really paying to go to Bulls games this year, mostly out of protest against Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner, and just keeping Garpax and Boylan on board. I've just sort of taken a stance against them, but
right.
They also suck.
It really is amazing because it doesn't really matter. We'll always talk about the Knicks. And I actually think Dolan's a function of that. I honestly think now you can push back on this, and Lord knows if I had other people on, they'd freak out. But the Knicks is this great franchise or this flagship franchise, the Cowboys. It's overrated. It's overrated, in my opinion. I think, and one of the reasons I say that is you could certainly make a case that the Bulls, are just as significant a franchise in the legacy of the league for a lot of reasons as the Knicks. And they're in a monster market, and they have all of the amenities and all the things. And you look at them, and they literally, if the dumpster fire phrase was invented. And so what I wanted to ask you was, why is that happening? And is it John Paxson?
Yeah, it's Jerry Reinsdorf being too loyal to John Paxson. He does the same thing with the White Sox with Kenny Williams, I think, over the years. I'm not a White Sox fan, but I've heard people complain about that too. He hasn't spent money as much as he should have, I feel like, in the past. The Bulls have humongous ticket sales and merchandise across the world. The biggest arena in the NBA, it's always sold out until this year, really. But so they print money basically. And
now, how are they drawing this year?
So I looked at their past years of attendance percentage ranking for a long time with Rose and without him at times during that era when he was hurt. They were number 1 or 2 consistently. I think last year maybe they were 7th or 10th. Now they're 23rd.
Right.
They still sell a lot of tickets because it's a huge arena, but Reinsdorf has to be noticing it, I'm sure.
Here's the thing. Why would Jerry Reinsdorf really, really pay attention to what's going on and try to conscientiously have the right people in place? Because he's got to win, right? Because our business depends. Well, it doesn't depend on it.
Yeah.
And of course, that's the problem. Now, in the NBA, in the NFL, that's an endemic issue that will go on forever because of $300 million to each team, no matter what, every year. So the Bidwells, who are now used to be in Chicago with the Cardinals, St. Louis, the Bidwells can hire. I mean, that family, has been with the Cardinals franchise now in Arizona since the 1920s. Same people, same family, right? And they hire Cliff Kingsbury. What? What is that? So, and it's a function of we don't have to win. And do you think it's just a matter of complacency? And do you think, here's another thing. Do you think that maybe with the next television contract, perhaps not as lucrative, maybe that might change a little bit?
For the NFL or
for all
NBA?
for all the teams in the NBA, because I don't think John Skipper isn't at ESPN anymore. He's not handing out free money. And I don't think that ESPN is going to give I mean, they might, adjusted for inflation, get a similar number, but I really think they might get, less this year coming up in this next television contract. And that could maybe affect teams like the Bulls. I mean, do you think that could have an impact if there's less free money coming in?
I feel like the Bulls are probably bulletproof when it comes to making money.
Right.
Some teams probably, it would affect them. For the Bulls, though, it's like just complacency in general and laziness maybe with considering other options. I mean, the coaching search to hire Boylan, I mean, they didn't really do a search, and the Hoiberg search was not a search either. It's just these Iowa State Gar-forming connections.
Well, it's an old boy network.
Yeah.
Period. And so, we're out here with the Lakers and the Clippers, and I'm into the NBA probably more so than most people around the country, because the Lakers and the Clippers are in Los Angeles, and we've always had the Lakers. So we talk about the Lakers a lot more than some of the big markets who are obsessed with the NFL. But dude, just explain to me, all right? Because I don't know, how is it that the Bulls can be so define mediocrity for so long? They have this gargantuan arena. It's a nice place, but not a great place to go visit, right? How is it that people spend so much money and there's no expectation that they're going to make a championship run at all every year? Why do people do that?
I mean, for a while they were a championship contender with Derrick Rose, and
Right.
some of those teams were really good. And the arena is nice, I'd say, and they do a good job with entertainment in the arena. Reinsdorf finally did spring for a new jumbotron that was overdue. But I don't know. Chicago likes basketball, and the Jordan era Bulls created so many fans. It's just
wow. Get you now. So. Now, I mean, you really. Here's the thing. It's the resonance from MJ. It's the resonance from the hope of the Derrick. We're dropping those names in, right?
Yeah.
But it's I think the key is what you said. They're bulletproof between the branding, between international, because I'm sitting here talking about the next domestic contract. Well, they got Tencent over there in China, right? And they're going to make sure they get that. That's a huge deal.
Yeah. So Daryl Morey doesn't tweet anymore.
Right. Exactly. Wow. What a cataclysmic situation that was. So, and we're visiting with the guy who started Tankathon. Here he is, Matt Hoover. And so, Matt, we just talked about, before I interrupted you and filibustered unduly for 45 minutes, I asked you, who are the teams that are primarily tanking in the NBA? So give me the 3 top teams in your opinion right now that are tanking.
Let's see. Probably Golden State, but they're so limited with their roster that they can't really even do anything. I think Detroit is going to enter this fray real soon with Blake Griffin out, and they're probably going to trade Andre Drummond. So they should trade Derrick Rose. They should do everything and just they should blow it up. Let's see who else.
Is there a team out there that you think is tanking, but nobody thinks they are? I mean, because you watch these teams so freaking closely. I mean, is there a team that has a kind of a tanking mentality embedded in there, or maybe is trying to pull a fast one, or there are no secrets?
I feel like a lot of teams are trying still right now, especially in the East. There's the 8th seed is very much in grasp for several teams.
Right.
I mean, I don't think Atlanta's trying to lose. The Knicks are probably trying to win. I mean, so the definition of tanking and claiming someone's tanking is pretty strong, I guess. And I'm not really confident in terms of teams outside of.
So let's put it this way: of the teams that really aren't tanking, and that because you're following the bottom half of the league more so than really almost anyone I could talk to. So it's interesting because this is where I'm going to find out. I'm asking you, of the teams in the lower half that have really disappointed. I guess you can make a case for the Hawks, but it's not like everybody was, staying up late at night thinking that they were going to make a championship run.
I thought they'd be okay. Yeah,
right.
But not championship. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not been a good year. But of the teams in the bottom half, what do you think are the teams that are the most disappointing that have really underachieved?
I consider Atlanta very disappointing.
Right.
The Bulls are disappointing to many. I thought they'd be like this. Let's see. I mean, Zion being out makes they can't really count that for the Pelicans. Yeah, I mean, anyone that thought the Knicks would be good is crazy, so they'd be disappointed.
Right. Is there
I'd say Atlanta for me.
All right. Now, as we move into the the second half of the season, or we get closer towards the midpoint of the season, All-Star break, what NBA team? I'm going to put you on the spot. What NBA team right now? It's a pretty good team out there. You think is most likely to fall off a cliff? That's right now fool's gold.
So we wouldn't consider Detroit fool's gold.
No, yeah, they're toast. Right? Feel free to shock me on this. I'm trying to think. What I mean, how about this? May sound ridiculous. How about Toronto? Is that possible? Is it possible they're a mirage?
I don't know. I mean, Siakam raised his game this year, and
right?
So got Lowry. If they trade someone, they could fall off.
But is that going to last? Because this is a new thing, right? I mean, he's always been a great player, but he's become a much better player.
I think they are maybe not quite as good as their record shows, and I don't think they're a contender for a title. If that's what people
right. So assess now. And here's another team that's really interesting to me, and it just depends, I guess, on your. Well, it could depend on your political perspective, I suppose, but the Spurs, and for a franchise that is such a successful dynastic franchise, good Lord, they plagued us, right? I mean, I gotta watch these guys and Duncan slogging around, and it wasn't at times the most fun team to watch, but there were times when they had great teams that were entertaining. But what do you make of what's happening? Just give me your overview of the Spurs. What's really happening there?
I think it's just they've never bottomed out. They did well with the DeJounte Murray pick, I'd say, but they're just sort of stuck in the middle. That's like kind of where you don't want to be. I could see them falling out of the playoffs for sure. It's hard to say that, but just because they're the Spurs.
Do you think it's over for Popovich? Do you think he steps away? There's like no prospect to really turn this around in 2 or 3 years.
I don't know. How old is he? Do you know?
I don't know, but he's getting up there, dude. He's old. He's been around forever, and but you would think he wouldn't want to go out like this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see an easy route to like contending for them, but you never know. Maybe they'll fall in the lottery and get into that top 4. Things can change.
Well, here's the one thing about the Spurs, and there's some teams that fit this profile. In the old days, Cuban maybe, or hey, we can go get this guy in Europe nobody knows about, right? Or we can go down to South America and steal this guy nobody knows about. Those days are long gone. They're over. Yeah. And maybe that's, and I'm probably way late to the party on that with the Spurs, but I think there's something to be said. And even a guy like Tim Duncan, a great college player, so wasn't exactly a surprise, but he was an off the radar guy in St. Croix. So that kind of defines how they put Tony Parker.
Yeah, I never really thought about international, like everyone else catching up in the international scouting, I guess. But that's a good point.
Right. So give me your I also want to ask you about a team that this is really, it's turning into a disaster. Sacramento. Mm-hmm. What do you think about their decision to fire the coach after last year? Right. And they retool, and Vladdy's at the front of it. What are your thoughts on Sacramento right now?
They're kind of a mess. They're the Kings. I think some of it comes with the owner. He's a little out there. I think he wants to win, though, definitely.
Right.
Vlade,
the guy from India, right? Or the Indian guy.
Yeah, Vivek Ranadive.
Right.
I love Vlade as a player. I don't know if I'd want him as my team's GM, but I don't know. I mean, the Bagley pick, I think, is going to haunt them.
Right. Right.
Their roster, I mean, Fox is solid, but they're kind of, I don't see them being really legit good anytime soon, I guess.
Okay, really quick, let's go to the NFL. I really don't want to do baseball in the NHL right now, but
Yes.
and so the NFL. We talked about the Dolphins. What? Give me two other teams that tanked. Did the Redskins tank? Did the Giants tank? I mean, what are your thoughts on them?
Let's see. Well, the Lions lost 9 games in a row. I think Stafford could have played some.
Lions, right?
He had a broken back, but he played some with it.
Right.
So the Lions maybe did, or they're just bad also, kind of. The Panthers tanked, I'd say. When they benched Kyle Allen and just.
Well, and fire Rivera.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
That's when the team really, I think that was when the ship went down.
Yeah, so they lost 8 straight, and they're in this number 7 pick right now. So,
it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see what Carolina does, with the new coaching, and if this Tepper guy, we're trying to figure out, is he a meddler? Is he going to be a pain in the ass? All this, when you make bets on guys like Matt Rule,
a lot of
I
money.
don't care. Yeah, well, it's not even the money. It's for him, it's not. But and for anybody in the NFL, it's not. But everybody's screaming about Matt Rule. That's fine. He's done a nice job. That's great. But pump the brakes. Pump the brakes. He's done nothing. So, but man, I really, really, really appreciate you coming on, man. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
And you do a great. And I can't encourage you enough. Keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, I've been trying to get the time or motivation to do a sort of a visual update of the whole site. Nothing drastic, but kind of updates.
Okay.
And stuff.
So when are we going to, maybe after, maybe before the NFL season, something like that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I just set the deadline for you. Right?
It's out there.
Well,
on me now.
We're hitting that site, tankathon.com. And of course, Tankathon on Twitter. It's real simple, man. Go there. Matt Hoover joins us. I really appreciate it, Matt. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Brooks.
And now we're going to transition and join Pat McAfee Show on Twitter. And coming up later, we're going to visit with Tom Curran and his dog, Bo Curran, NBC Sports Boston, in about half an hour. Pat, thank you, man, so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me. This app is pretty cool. This is a pretty cool thing here we got. I had to log in. I had to sign up. I had to give an email. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? I want to talk to my guy. But then I get in here. This is a pretty sweet little thing you got cooking, my brother.
It's a nice little interface. Pretty damn. I've heard that from a lot of people. And, man, you look clear as you look great, man. Well, now you got a basketball.
We got pretty good Wi-Fi over here in Indiana.
That's
this is my office, man. This is...
Shut up.
Looks. I believe motion creates emotion, and also if you're a white guy in Indiana, you have to have a jumper. And mine wasn't that great, so I had to put one in the office so I could get a little better.
Dude, I just want you to know, first of all, I subscribe to DAZN, and if you're watching this right now, I subscribed to DAZN on September 9 when you started your show, and if you're watching this right now and you don't have DAZN, DAZN, what the hell are you doing? Get it. Watch this show. I'm being dead serious. This is the only show you need. And the thing I like about you, Pat, is when you're talking and your decision not to have a regular permanent co-host, I think is significant. I'm not saying you're not going to do it in the future, but when you talk, I know you believe what you're saying. I know, and I'm not denigrating other shows, but it's not staged. It's not positioning. It's not an agenda or contrived. And in the way you present everything you do, it's authentic because sometimes it goes against the grain. So I just wanted to let you know that it's one of my primary destinations every day, brother. And
that means a lot. I can't for that.
And also the other thing I want to point out is you are a storyteller, right? A storyteller at heart, and just the fact that you've done stand up, and I love it when you get the mic stand out. And one of the things I remember, and I just want to check on this. So just bear with me. I could be totally off on this, but when you would do, I think it's Get Up, and then you would jump over and you would do your DAZN show, and it would be when you would have those those huge like European, foam mic flags on the mic, but you would have a mic stand, right? And you'd walk around, dude. You didn't have a bottom on the mic stand. It was like a Freddie Mercury mic stand, right? you know what I mean by that?
No. There was a bottle. Just it was a standard stand-up comedy mic stand.
Right.
Moving, and I thought if we did talking, instead of the zone set up for me, a stage basically where I could roam.
Yes.
I can move. I don't have to be locked into one place. And for me, with AD, that is something that has been massive for me, and I appreciate this.
Right. So, of course, we're visiting with Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee Show, DAZN. Get it? Go to his Twitter. And so I wanted to ask you, though, because I don't even want to mention how long I've been in radio. It's embarrassing now. I'm like 73 years old. But I've been in management, national shows, local shows. We have a mutual friend, Kirk Herbstreit. I did a show in Columbus with him, co-hosted with him for a while on a general talk show. But man, I mean, you're 32 years old, right? 32?
Yeah, I got a low liver though. If you're,
come on, man.
If you're 73, I need whatever lotion you're taking. You're 25.
I'm 52. I always wildly exaggerate for effect to bring attention to myself. But
I respect that. It's a good storytelling trick.
But man, here's what I want to ask you. I mean, I don't know if you're a natural, and I sound like I'm being obsequious. I know, but I don't know you, and so I'm just excited to have you because I really, really see you as a disruptor in a good way, in a business that really, really needs it. What you're doing is unprecedented, and but it's legit, and your career is based on merit. I mean, we could talk about social media, we could talk about so many different things, but man, to watch you, and you're moving around at times. Sometimes you got your feet up, you're doing your thing, but you don't have a co-host when you're in your permanent indie studio, which to me is kind of a statement. And but I wanted to ask you, because you're so good at it, was Bob and Tom working with them? What impact, this great morning show, legacy morning show in Indianapolis? I know you work with them, and they've been syndicated regionally, and that's a huge show. What impact did they have on you perhaps wanting to do a show, and then also the show that you do?
Yeah, I appreciate all the kind words you said, by the way. That's so incredibly nice of you. I'm very lucky. When I came to Indianapolis, obviously this is a city where Peyton Manning has a statue, and the Indy 500 where 500,000 people travel to party and watch people race and all this stuff. But the thing that I was really captivated by was that there was this radio show called Bob and Tom, and it was on 170 stations. Okay, it was on 170 stations. Yeah. And I used to was younger on like ESPN or whatever. It used to be a television show that would air at like midnight. So what was it? The WB? Was that a channel? Yeah, I think it was on the WB in Pittsburgh.
So you're in Pittsburgh you're in Pittsburgh watching it. Wow.
Yeah, so I'm in Pittsburgh watching it as a child at like midnight, because I've always been a guy who can't sleep, right? I can't sleep well. So even as a kid, I was watching it in my room. I used to watch the show on the WB or whatever. So now here we are. I get drafted to Indianapolis, and I become a member of the Colts. And Jeff Saturday was the Bob and Tom affiliate for Tuesday mornings, our off day. From 6 to 10, they'd be nationally syndicated. Then from 10 to 10:30, it'd be like a Colts Tuesday with Jeff Saturday, Bob and Tom. Okay, wow, so Jeff Saturday had that role. Yeah, go ahead. No, so Jeff Saturday had that role for like 10 years. Jeff Saturday leaves to go to the Packers. He gets cut by the Colts. He goes to the Packers. He doesn't get re-signed. He goes to the Packers. So Bob and Tom people ask a couple of the local media members. They're like, hey, who should be the person that fills in for Jeff Saturday? And a couple of the local media people were like, you need to get Pat McAfee in here. So Tom Griswold reads me. I've been a fan of your show for like 10 years. I'm not going to be the one that's going to mess it up. I was like, there's no way I'm going to come in there and ruin it. You've done this for a long time. I am a young, dumb idiot. I'm not that style. I should not do it. Tom Griswold told me that if I didn't come on the show, I'm an idiot. So the first week I go in there, 10 to 10:30. It's just a local show. We talk about the Colts. I tell a couple stories. And Bob Cavoyan and Tom directly afterwards said, hey, next week, anytime you want to come in on Tuesday, you can come in. We have a nationally syndicated show from 6 to 10. Anytime you want to come in next Tuesday, you come in. So I saw there's an opportunity. I went in at 6 a.m. And I did 4.5 hours of radio that Tuesday. And my Twitter grew by I think 40 to 50,000 just that day. And it was that moment after Boyne and I became really close friends. And he was like, hey, this is probably built for. This is something you should think about. Bob Cavoyan's my next door neighbor now. He's everything. He's like one of my best friends. And Bob and Tom is the only reason I'm really doing this.
So, but and I know it sounds like I'm kissing your ass, but I mean, you're obviously somewhat of a natural in what you do. I mean, because dude, this guy's doing 2 hours straight and he's doing it every damn day. What the hell? It's really embarrassing for a guy like me. When I was your age, bro, I was a mess. I couldn't do that. So what impact do you think those guys helped you, or were you always kind of this guy? Because I think what really helps is you're a storyteller, man. That's my impression. That's a big part of it. But did they polish you up? What impact did it have when you would be on that show?
No, I think, and by the way, my face is always red because I'm Irish and I used to drink a lot. But I'm blushing from what you're saying. But I think what happened on that show, and I learned a lot of things, getting to watch them work in the commercial breaks, what they would do and the way they would set things up. I got to learn a lot of things. And Tom Griswold told me something one day. I got into a story that something happened. I forget what it was, but it wasn't like this super happy story. It was, and normally everything I say is like super positive, but it led into like something that was, not like upbeat. And Tom told me in the commercial break, he said, hey, people have enough crap in their life. All right. Just make them laugh. Just make them laugh. And for me, now that I'm in the sports world, I've had a chance to take that mindset with my incredible sports intel that I've had in the NFL, getting a chance to be front row seat for one of the greatest teams of all time to one of the worst teams of all time, to getting to be in the situation because I'm very much a regular ass dude who just so happens to be in very lucky situations. So I don't know if they polished me, but I think they helped me a lot kind of figure out what's good radio, what's bad radio. And for the time, it could get bad, but for me, I'm just trying to make people laugh, trying to look at things a different way, and hopefully give them some intel that nobody else has.
It's funny, you think of that movie. I don't know if you've seen The Irishman, right? Have you seen The Irishman?
Oh, yeah.
You saw the ending, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of a lead balloon, a little bit similar to your story there. But we're visiting with Pat McAfee Show. And so now I'm going to ask you some pretty basic questions. And I know a lot of it is, well, you got to be consistent. You got to stick with it. You got to, be creative. But when I look at your Twitter and you get like 5 million likes on a tweet, and it's just like, hey, everybody, and you got like 27,000 likes, right? How did that happen? Well,
likes mean nothing on Twitter.
Okay.
Just that's something you need to know about the app Twitter. Likes are cool. It's people acknowledging you, but retweets are king on Twitter. And I think Twitter I wasn't asked to do interviews whenever I was at the NFL. No media people really wanted to talk to me. Aside from the Bob and Tom show on Tuesdays, I was rarely asked about anything ever, right? So I ended up getting arrested for public intoxication. And Twitter became my way to let these people who knew nothing about me, Indianapolis knew nothing about me. They still thought Hunter Smith was the punter for the Colts whenever I got arrested. They had no idea, right? Peyton Manning's team, nobody's looking out for the punter. I mean, if the punter comes on the field, that means Peyton didn't get a first down, which is very rare. And Peyton ran this down, still does if he wants to. So everybody thought Hunter Smith was still the punter. I was a nobody. So what Twitter became for me was a messaging place that I could tell Indianapolis that I wasn't an idiot. Like, yeah, I had a great night. Listen, I had a great night that ended terribly. I'm sorry. I embarrassed my family. I embarrassed the Colts. The story got blown up because our team was good, and it was an embarrassing arrest, allegedly swimming in a canal. So Twitter for me became something where I could get my personality and voice my opinions and on the situation to the people of Indianapolis, and it just caught on. It became something that I was very good at, and I think it's because on Twitter, the way you get big is you have a big name, you inform somebody of something, you entertain somebody, or you're relatable. Okay? I just so happen to be a pretty relatable, basic ass dude. So the way I think about things is normally how a lot of people think about things, which leads them to retweet it, which is basically commercial for your Twitter account, somebody else's Twitter account. And then it just kind of grew. And my Twitter is a faithful group of people that I love a lot. And they're the reason why I'm getting any of the opportunities I get. They're the reason I did a stand-up tour and sold out in like my Twitter is my people, and I'm very, very fortunate for them, but it's been years and years and years of responding to the first like there and just sending out tweets and being active on there.
Visiting with Pat McAfee show. All right, I'm not gonna throw you a curveball here. I'm gonna throw you, and I'm not gonna put you on the spot, but just a thought. All right, and you probably have already pondered it, perhaps. But this is just a thought, all right? It's a spitball, actually. It's not a curveball. So,
yeah, hey, let's workshop here. Let's do this.
All right, yeah, that's what we're doing, man. We're sitting back in the conference room, put our feet up, and that's what you do, and that's what we're gonna do on this thing. So let's spitball. And so I see you on the WWE, which is acting to a certain extent, somewhat not acting at times, especially with the tuxedo shorts, right? That kerfuffle, but it worked out. So you do freaking stand up. I mean, you're a young guy, and man, I wish we had all damn day, because I'd love to talk to you about your career and how you went out, man. Because and it kind of relates to what I'm talking about right now. I've read in researching your life, that you've messed around with a screenplay or maybe written up some scripts and thought about that situation, and then I think most importantly, dude, when we go back to how you got to West Virginia, that long, winding road. And, dude, first of all, I have to stop this right now. Can you give me a little detail on how you won that money? Seriously, to get to Miami.
It was awesome, bro. It was a full house. It was by the way, I appreciate you doing your research. That's something I need to do more of whenever I'm on my show. I do too much. Let's see what the hell we figure out here about. But when I was in high school, I was a soccer player. I had a lot of schools looking at me for soccer. And the first time I kicked the football, I kicked like a 60-yard field goal, like literally the first time I kicked it. So it was one of those things where my dad and I used to go up to my high school football field and kick for hours at night. He would shag it. He can't throw a football still to this day because he blew out his shoulder with us shagging the ball I was kicking. And there was a real decision that had to be made on whether or not I was going to be a soccer player or a football player, whether or not I wanted to run 7 miles and kick a ball or run 3 steps and kick a ball. That was a decision that had to be made. And when I was in high school, I didn't play till my junior year, played my senior year. Our high school football team was not a powerhouse, right? We didn't have a lot of recruiting. There wasn't a lot of colleges coming through our system. I was supposed to get a scholarship to Penn State. They ended up telling me that I could be a preferred walk-on, which you weren't going to do. I would have just played soccer.
Mike McQuarrie.
Yeah, that Mike McQuarrie. That Mike McQuarrie, if anybody Googles him, told me I wasn't, he didn't know if I was a Penn State guy or not. So I was probably going to play soccer. Kent State offered me a scholarship my senior year to go kick for the Golden Flashes. And then like a month before signing day, I got a call to ask if I wanted to come compete against Florida kickers in front of a bunch of college coaches in a college showcase. And it was like a week and a half out until it had to happen. They sent us the information. It was like $1,500 if you counted the airfare, the hotel, and the camp.
And how old are you? You're like 18 at the time?
Yeah, 17 probably. Yeah. And this is back whenever of poker had dominated everything. Chris Moneymaker, this relatable pudgy guy from the Midwest, had just won $7 million playing Texas Hold'em. In my neighborhood where we grew up, there was a poker game happening, like 50-cent dollar ante, like every single night basically. In everybody's garage, we all thought we were going to become these massive World Series of Poker stars. Like that was a real thought for us. And I asked my dad if he would pay, and my mom if they would pay for my trip down to Florida. And they were like, get the hell out of here. $1,500, no way. You're going to Kent State or whatever. So I end up in a poker game. I get a full house, and then I have to hang on to the money. I end up leaving that with $1,400. Get $100 spotted from my parents, and bingo bango. I go down to Miami. I kick a 60-yard field goal, a 65-yard field goal, miss a 70-yard field goal wide right. West Virginia offers me the next day. I say, let's do it. I become a Mountaineer, and bingo, here we go. I get drafted to punt for the Indianapolis Colts, and I have no idea why my life is the most dumb, lucky life in the history of existence. But I'm here just to hopefully survive and enjoy the hell out of it.
Right. So what you just described, right? And this is not Kiss Ass. That's a movie. The card game.
Yeah.
And I think and it's probably because you relate this to reporters to a certain extent, but it's also the reporters. But you're a storyteller, man. And then when I read that thing, he's playing around with a screenplay. Have you thought in WWE? But have you thought about acting? Have you thought about getting into? Yeah, tell us about what your thoughts are on it, because I'm interested in that.
Yeah. So I've always, even before I kicked a football, I'd always thought that I was supposed to be on this earth to be a professional wrestler. Honestly, always thought that. I played a good heel, like even in soccer, like people loved to hate me and I loved it. Like I enjoyed it a lot. Getting booed or whatever was completely okay with me. I had a pretty good personality. I was pretty athletic. So I always thought I was supposed to be a professional wrestler. Always. Now, as soon as my college career ended at West Virginia, before the draft, there's that time period where nobody has like ownership over me, right? So I actually went down to Charleston, West Virginia, and wrestled a guy named War Pig in IWA East Coast. I'm undefeated. I beat him. No big deal. Still undefeated to this day. Now, and the plan was, if the NFL doesn't work out, I'm going to go wrestle. And when I got to the Colts, there was a guy there named Tom Pestock, who is now Baron Corbin of the WWE. And we used to talk at length, like, hey, if this doesn't work, we're just going to go to the WWE and see if we can make it over there. We were both big fans. I ended up obviously having a pretty good career with the Colts. He ended up with the Cardinals and got cut from there, started with the WWE. Now he's one of the top superstars there. So whenever I retired from the Colts, my goal was I'm going to go wrestle somewhere. I've always had this in my mind. I'm supposed to do this. I need to do it at least once to get it off my bucket list. And Michael Cole reached out to me. He asked me to speak and be on commentary for a pre-show for NXT. I said, sounds good. I go down there. And the relationship has kind of grown at a much slower rate than I would have expected, honestly. But I assume at some point I'll be in the ring wrestling. And then the goal was obviously to get into acting and writing my own movies with my guys here. I mean, I want to get into the entertainment world even more and more while still being in the sports talk world, because honestly, I just love it. And I enjoy creating and I enjoy making people laugh and things like that. So I think it'll be something I eventually do. I have no clue when, but hopefully sooner than later.
And I think it's, and maybe I already mentioned this once, but it's very rare in what you do. There is an artistic element. It's kind of subtle to what you do, but on your show, I see it. And how about some dummy in LA who doesn't know you? I've never talked about you to anybody, and I see it, dude. So just know.
Well, hey, usually, and now I would never judge you because I've looked into you too, by the way. You're an awesome character as well. I want to let you, what you did, you have people still questioning everything in their life about your decision, which in my eyes, brilliant. I absolutely love that. So that'll be a conversation we'll have to have some other day. Yeah. But usually the older folks in this particular profession, and this is not a bash on the profession of radio or entertainment or anything like that, they don't get me, right? Like to get my gig at ESPN, like when I retired,
give you a chance. They don't give you a chance. That's what
they don't get me. Like I think when I retired, Barstool was the only people that wanted to do anything with me. Like Dave and Erica were the only people that reached out to me and were like, hey, we want you to create and do whatever the hell you want. We just want to help you learn about the internet business because we see you got something going on. So I was able to run my own business out here in Indianapolis while learning from them about the business of the internet. I got a chance to really learn a lot with my time there. I was too far away to really do good business conversations with them, so we ended up parting our ways. But coming out of the NFL, I think I was the only all-pro guy who did 94 minutes of stand-up in a theater that held 2,500 people that sold out in like 7 seconds and had zero offers from TV people. Right. Like zero offers from TV people. So then I go to Barstool, have a good time, continue to grow there. And then whenever I leave Barstool, I start running my own operation out here. I had a couple people from CAA that came out. They flew out to meet me And they're like, hey, we think you are something that is special, and we would like to get you into television or whatever. I said, yeah, that's not going to happen, right? When I came out of the NFL, I was hot. I would assume something would happen. These guys, Coonan and Klein, David Coonan and Michael Klein, have gone to bat for me at CAA. They introduced me to all these people. I had to go on planes and meet all these executives and shake all their hands and do the whole kiss ass game. Right. And it was interesting to talk to them because they knew that they were probably supposed to like me, but none of them knew why. And I think that's still a situation that happens with the older execs. They don't get me. But to be honest, I don't care because I run my own business that does good. So I don't care if those gatekeepers understand me. So hearing that you are a fan in LA is a big deal to me. I want to let you know that. I'm very thankful for that because that is not something I would have ever expected.
Last thing, and hey, actually a football question. I want to ask you, man, because yesterday we talked about Joe Judge, and I went off and said, that's a joke. That's a joke hire, right? Am I a dumbass? That hire by the Giants? Tell me about Joe Judge, and what do you think of that hire? Punch me in the mouth.
I don't know Joe Judge personally, so I can't punch you in the mouth with that. But what I will say is, if you're watching the Patriots all year, the thing that they were winning because of was their defense and their special teams. I mean, it was special teams highlight after special teams highlight after special teams highlight, which isn't normal because special teams is very hard to get an edge on. Very, very hard. You're dealing with the bottom third of the roster normally. Now, Matthew Slater is a superstar, but you're dealing with players that are arriving on the team on Thursday, on Friday. A lot of people don't even know their names. And the special teams coach has to take these players that probably shouldn't be in the NFL, but have a chance to make a play because of either an injury or something like that, get them motivated, get them all on the same page in an act and a craft that they're not used to doing. If you made it to the NFL, you were a superstar on your team. You didn't play special teams. You didn't have to do a punt pass set. You didn't have to run back and block somebody on a kickoff. You didn't have to fly into a wedge. You were normally the superstar on your team. You just so happened to not be at that level with the NFL, so you have to play special teams. The special teams coach is the only coach that speaks to the entire team. They're the only coach that carries weight both on the offensive side and the completely coach somebody from ground zero up to an NFL standard. So I don't know Joe Judge, but I do know that I'm happy that Harbaugh has had success coaching because special teams coaches deserve a lot more credit than they get because special teams has been wiped off as something that doesn't or isn't as important as the other two phases.
For the brand, brother.
Hey, for the brand, man.
And the Giants and Joe Judge, bro. He needs to get one of those damn T-shirts.
I don't know. He's in New York now. He's big time. He's a head coach. He might forget about special teams. We'll see what happens.
Well, but it's like you just described, like a mini-me head coach. Like a special teams coach is the closest thing. Is that accurate at all? That is the closest thing to a head coach on the staff?
So the thing about it is they're the only ones. Right? They're the only ones that talk to everybody other than the superstar quarterback who's not in special teams meeting and maybe like a stud wide receiver that isn't in. Other than that, the entire team, you have to be able to command the attention of the entire roster on a daily basis. They speak to the entire team every single day. So there's no nerves in speaking. There's not a way where you can't reach an offensive player or can't reach a defensive player. He can reach everybody. Now it's just all about hiring the right offensive coordinator, the good defense coordinator, the staff he puts together, and I'm excited to see how he does because I think that'll open the door for more special teams folks.
Don't change a freaking thing, all right? Don't change anything, right?
I can't.
I mean, that's you. That's your success right there, man. Be authentic. Just keep doing your thing, and I'll be watching, and I can't thank you enough, and we got to get together when you're out here.
I appreciate you. I'm going to make an LA trip here in the next couple months. I can't wait to meet you in person.
You got it, man. Hit me anytime.
All right, I'll see you
so much, Pat.
See you, brother.
That's Pat McAfee Show. And look, it's the first time I had him on the show. And he is like an outlier. And I've got, a lot of experience in the sports talk show business. And I recognize how special it is what he's doing. You might not, but I do. It's different. And I didn't say this to him. Probably should have. Didn't have the time. That I can guarantee you that 95% of sports talk show hosts out there in the business right now see his show wherever they see it with his feet up, but doing a great job on his talk show. And he can do whatever he wants, right? And he's the man. And it is the wet dream of sports radio and sports television talk show hosts to do what he's doing because he can do whatever he wants. And, when you talk about why is he a success, why does Pat McAfee have that loyal audience, right? And he doesn't have this gargantuan distribution. It's because when he talks, people know it's actually him, right? And number one, because he's consistent in who he is, because that's him. It doesn't change, right? Now, I do know that people kind of often are schizophrenic, don't know who they are. But, and here's another thing about him, and I kind of alluded to it. And by the way, we're going to have Tom Curran of NBC Sports Network, Boston. And Tom is the OG Patriots insider, the man. So that's going to be coming up here in 1 second. But this is like a pet subject for me. People who are disruptors, people who change everything. And that's America. That's Google. That's Apple. I mean, think about it, man. What it was like in this country. And I'm not saying Pat McAfee is Google or Apple, but think about the sports radio talk show game, sports television talk show game. Nothing personal against Stephen A. Smith, right? And this, I'm not for Colin Kaepernick necessarily in this particular case or against him. I think it's kind of a questionable situation. Well, we might have to revisit that at some point. But when Kaepernick went down to Atlanta, all right, when he went down to Atlanta, it turns out that Stephen A. Smith helped engineer that deal directly with Roger Goodell, Stephen A. Smith, and he didn't mention it on his show. And then when it didn't work out, so he was giving cover, right, for the NFL in this deal. He helped facilitate it, and I think it's actually a good thing. But he didn't mention it on the air. And then when everything went south, Stephen A. Smith went berserk on Kaepernick. Now, why was he so upset? Why was he so angry, right? Well, maybe he was just upset and thought Kaepernick blew it and Kaepernick should have submitted to everything the NFL wanted, right? No. It's because he helped set it up. And how do I know he helped to set it up and that he didn't mention it on his show? Because he went on a podcast and said it in a very specific way that this is what happened. And then he later addressed it. We talked to Jamel Hill about it on this show a few weeks later because she called him out on it, as she should. So that's one of my points with Pat. That doesn't happen with him. You know, he is someone who is going to give you on his show, like he said, proprietary NFL information, informed analysis, and dude, he's the one guy who's going to break out, stand up for crying out loud. He's got the mic stand there, whatever. So for me personally, I can't tell you how many years have gone by. And that's really the inspiration for this show, where I said to myself, I really want to watch or listen to sports radio right now. What's going on? What do people think? And dude, I would listen to the shows or watch them and they're garbage. They're all contrived. They're all fake and phony, patronizing, right? Staged. And look, I understand that going back and forth with your buddies, that's a big part of sports. Joking around and, when your team wins, holding that over your buddy's head and all that stuff. And that's kind of an extension of that with what you see on First Take to a certain extent. But of course, they portray that as very serious business, as they do on Undisputed. So, so when I'm watching that, I got no idea what's going on. What do these guys really think? What are they doing? What's the agenda? It's all contrived, right? That's why I'm drilling down on what Pat does. He doesn't do that. And I think it's telling that he doesn't have a co-host. We didn't really get into that, but and look, hey man, if you love Stephen A. Smith, that's your guy, that's your thing, and First Take and Undisputed, cool, right? But I like it when I know the person who's talking to me, who is good at what he does, right, is actually telling me something he believes, right? He's all in on. And it never changes. And you can tell because maybe that guy presents himself like I grew up in Kansas City, right? Midwest. And my family's from Oklahoma and Arkansas. So bolo ties were part of our life. And so I see Pat McAfee wear a bolo tie, right? Well, he doesn't just wear it once. That's kind of who he is. He's consistent. He's authentic. So that's my 2 cents. Got a little too fired up, I think, on that. So speaking of fired up, man, this guy is the man. Tom Curran, and I got a bunch of questions I'm going to run by him about the Patriots. Tom Curran of NBC Sports Boston, the OG, the Oracle, Patriots insider, the man, and Bo Curran, hopefully. Let's hope so. Friend of the show, Bo Curran. I'd like to think at least. On demand, there he is.
Oh.
There he is. Awesome.
All right.
That is amazing.
Hey, I'm listening to you there with that stuff, and it is interesting what you were talking about, because the authenticity of stuff, I've always kind of tried to be as real and real as I can.
Yeah.
What ends up happening to me, as somebody who actually had to host live a 3-hour show in Boston in 2017 called Boston Sports Tonight, it gets hard to have a hard opinion on everything, and you can't say, well, there's a lot of gray area. So there does come a point where the idea of a hot take has to take root. You have to take a friggin' side. Or it does just become a bunch of guys going, well, I see it that way, but I also see it this way. You can be individually interesting, but if you're just going to sit on the fence for a couple hours, it's like, oh, say something.
Now, here's where I'm going to push back on that to a certain extent. And I think that's why having a co-host is good, because I still think you can just, and again, there's a part of this is the presentation, right?
Yep.
That's part of the entertainment element to it. And people have an affinity for people and their personalities, and it grows on them. So that's part of it too. But in talking about, okay, not much is going on, and, it's 50-50, and I have to be true to myself, but that doesn't sell. I would push back on that a little bit if you have a co-host, because I think if you have a co-host in that situation who's a legit guy, and is not contriving stuff either, I think it works.
Yeah, I mean, like Scott Van Pelt can carry it, and he is not hot taken out the ass, and he'll say when he believes things, when it's nebulous, everything else. I think that Wilbon and Kornheiser get into hot takery, but you can still see that there's a veneer of they might not really believe it, but they're trying to put on a show. And then there gets to the Nick Wrights and the Rob Parkers, and you're like, Rob
Parker. I mean,
it's an act.
But now I will say this, and maybe you heard me say this, dude. I'm a regular guy. I'm a sports fan. I'm a guy who goes to the bar. I'm a guy who likes to hold the fact that my team beat my buddy's team. I'm going to hold that over your head for about 2 years, right? I get it. And that's what Rob Parker's doing. I mean, he's kind of creating that theater. And so it is what it is. But I think the problem that you have is everything is kind of presented in the same context, and there's a certain legitimacy to it. Just that Fox logo. There's legitimacy to that. And it's right. But then if we screw up, it's just fun and games.
100%. Right? Yeah, I didn't mean it. The other interesting thing to me is, though, there are different stripes of sports fans. For everybody that we talk about, hey, these guys just at the bar arguing, I don't want to listen to an inane sports opinion for the sake of, look at him go off again. I hate stupidity. Right. Whether it be Rob Parker's stupidity or the guy at the bar who might be a friend of mine, but if he's got shit opinions, I'm like, I really don't want to listen to you, buddy. You just don't know what you're talking about.
You cut me off on the pass on that, because I was going to say, but there's always that friend. There's the guy you room with in college. but then again, you can only take so many of those shit opinions, right, from him
Yep.
too. So
He knows just enough to get himself in trouble.
we're visiting. Well, and the other thing is, you're Tom freaking Curran. Come on, man. I mean, the bar's pretty high there. For your poor friends.
But it's Boston, man. It's in Boston.
Yeah.
The fans are sharp as shit. They are really well educated, and I'm not saying well read. They're educated on their teams. They're well read on their teams. They have voluminous institutional knowledge because of how good this team has been. So there are people who point out to me, yeah, that's not what happened in 08. If you don't remember, you should probably check that dummy, and they'll be right.
I got to ask you about the Patriots. Man, I want to follow that up, but we're not gonna have enough time. There's some really cool things going on that I want to ask you about with the Patriots in particular. So, what are the odds you think that Tom Brady, forget about him staying, let's just presume that they start negotiating with the Patriots. What are the odds he gets multiple years?
I look sick. I'm moving to a better part of the house. Multiple years from the Patriots?
Yeah, well, 2 years. In other words, 2 years.
I think that's a hell of a lot more likely than one. The reason being, and I just finished writing a story on this, there's a $13.5 million charge that's going to come with Brady. And if you just sign him for 1 year, this year, that $13.5 million charge is going to carry in. Now, there's a lot going on here, but there is an extra charge that the Patriots kicked into this year in the form of $13.5 million. If the Patriots don't get something done with Brady by St. Patrick's Day, bottom line, Brooksy, then they're going to have to add $13.5 million to whatever his 1 year salary would be. So if they get it done beforehand, they're only going to add $6.5 million charge.
So
I know. Look at you. You're trying to process this.
How about Josh McDaniels? Is it possible that his departure, if he goes to the Browns or wherever, if Josh McDaniels leaves, does that make it more likely that will dislodge Brady from the Patriots?
No. I think that Brady is in a vacuum, in a silo, separate from Josh McDaniels.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I just think that Brady, at this point, his situation is such that he feels like he hasn't had a great role with the team in terms of his input. They've made him multiple promises about what they would do with the money he saved them on their contract. They've made him multiple promises about what they would do with his extension and making sure that he was done. All of those things haven't happened, to the point now where it's very much, in my estimation, the Patriots are saying, please, buddy, go. Just retire. We want you to retire. And if you don't, we're going to have to give you an offer that's insulting.
Yeah, I'm really interested when I hear my antenna go up when I hear, and I don't think Brady mentioned this. In fact, I know he didn't. But you start to see reports from semi-credible people saying all of a sudden, the money is coming up in the conversation in the context of Brady money, and so look, I get it. You should never say, "Well, don't you have enough money, dude? Your wife's got all this money." When that pops up. And this is the LA guy with no information throwing this at you, Tom. This is your college roommate that you put up with. But when I hear money suddenly coming up, and maybe that's coming from the Brady camp or someone with knowledge of Brady's thinking, is that not really Brady saying, "Hey guys," to the Patriots, can you just make a gesture? I took it for the team for so many years, just a gesture. In one regard, yes, but tell you what. Do this math, and next time it comes up and somebody says it's about the money, if it were about the money, then Brady wouldn't have said, "Don't franchise me next year," because the franchise tag this year is going to be about $28 million. Yes, right.
So you add the $23 million he was paid to the 28 conceivable franchise tag, you get 51.
Right.
He was looking for a $50 million contract similar to Drew Brees. He would have gotten that if he left the franchise tag in. So it wasn't about making sure he got the money. It was about, I want to be free at the end of the year to do what I'm going to do. I want to be able to see what you guys are going to do before I come back to you.
We're visiting with Tom Curran, of course, NBC Sports Boston, talking about the Patriots. And so I ran this past Sochi, and man, Sochi really puts up with me. I was hammering on all my pet theories about the Patriots.
Bob?
Bob Sochi. He was with us.
Oh, yeah. He's straight-laced, too.
Great. Yeah, I know. I try to get him in trouble. He won't bite, right? But great guy. But I asked him, and I asked all the people that we have on about the principle, that Tom Brady throughout the course of his career has taken less money every year and really given Belichick and Kraft, but really Belichick a break. And with that money, the Patriots have been able to build that roster out. And that was a big part of the dynasty because Brady consistently took less money, right? Is that true?
At junctures, different years, it's been true. If you look at the last several years, he signed a 5-year, basically call it 5 years, $57 million to take him through 2017. Okay? In that period of time, the most important players on the Patriots offense were Rob Gronkowski, who the Patriots got at a very reasonable rate, especially in the latter half of his contract because he signed a long-term deal for $6 and $54, and Julian Edelman, who was a player who really didn't emerge and get a big contract until 16, and even then that was about $12 million. So the Patriots never really invested deeply in their offense. The biggest purchases they made were Stephon Gilmore, reinvesting in Devin McCourty, reinvesting in Dante Hightower.
Defense.
And Marcus Cannon, Shaq Mason, but nothing in terms. So they didn't do really shit around Brady in terms of saying, let's go spend this money on these guys. Maybe the biggest commitment they made was to Antonio friggin' Brown.
Yeah. Desperation.
They're still carrying $9 million worth of cap damage from him, which might be wiped out at some point. But no, they haven't done around him offensively what he gave them money to do.
So I just talked to Pat McAfee about this, and because I'm so ill-informed, I went off on the Giants for hiring Joe Judge. Man, that was a blindside, seemingly. I'm sure it wasn't to you, but for a lot of the national reporters. But as McAfee pointed out to me, and obviously that guy played on special teams, that special teams coach, and I know he moved over to a position coach, and Belichick, Burt Breer at least talked about Belichick trying to set up his resume to be a little more palatable, to be a head coaching hire. This is Joe Judge. But, as a special teams coach, man, you got to deal with everybody. You got to deal with the assistants and all the players to a certain extent. So what's your, now that I've spoke my piece, what's your read on Joe Judge? How do you think he's going to do?
He's a hard ass. He's incredibly detail oriented. Those guys, if they want to be in the NFL to try and win divisions, win titles, be really competitive and make football their most important thing, then he's in the right spot. If there's a whole culture that has to be renovated, i.e. the way the Browns probably will be with whoever goes there, it's going to be a lot harder because he's going to be a hard ass. He's going to be a tough guy to work for. He's at F-bomb Central. He was with Saban. He was with Belichick. I heard him with the wide receivers this year, his first year with the wide receivers. And the number of F-bombs he uttered, I'm like, whoa, I don't know how those guys are going to respond to that because every position is different. And he's a tough guy. Okay. I'm not saying he's not talented, smart, organized, or charismatic, but he's going to be tough on them.
Okay, so what's the real story on the? And I know, look, I mean they missed on Sanu, should have had Sanders, and God knows the injuries, and Gronk kind of did him dirty. But what's your assessment of Judge's performance with receivers? Because there's been a lot of people kind of piling on, like the receivers. Joe Judge sucks.
Yeah, Joe Judge basically was given that job as a moonlighting operation. It's like you, after you finish Brooksy, going to drive for FedEx. And then actually expecting you to be the best driver when they give you a Yugo, okay? He didn't have, it was it should have been a full-time job. It is on every other team. The Patriots are making him split that job, wide receivers part-time. And he's doing it with a rookie first-rounder who's injury-prone and doesn't really understand what it takes in the NFL. An undrafted rookie in Jacoby Myers. Gunnar Olszewski, another undrafted rookie who's converting over from the secondary, banged up Julian Edelman, God bless him. Philip Dorsett, who's kind of soft. And that's what we're talking about. So it's hard to hold him responsible for the performance of the Patriots wide receivers in 2019. But I understand it's a shiny object and the trump card people can lay down to say, this guy must suck. Look how bad the Patriots wideouts were.
So we're visiting with Tom Curran, NBC Sports Boston. So is there anything at all to, and I know the Giants' job's filled, of course. And well, first I want to ask you, because this relates to Belichick. I was going to ask you, is there anything at all to, well, Bill might leave. Don't be surprised.
No.
It always starts with don't be surprised kind of
100%. No, it's asinine. He
Really?
is. No, it's unbelievably.
Now, why do you
absurd.
say that? What? Well, tell me why.
Because he's entrenched. He's collected every bit of power he possibly could. I mean, he's the owner's almost 80. He has his two sons on the staff. He runs the defense. McDaniels might soon leave. Brady's probably going to leave. I mean, he owns it. It's his. Everything is his.
Right.
So there's no reason for him to go someplace else and have to reboot and restart and start a new culture. It's his stuff.
Yeah. That's interesting. So,
And he's got an extension. This is said to be, but he's recently gotten an extension as well, said to be, and this was at the beginning of the season. So this is not Tom Curran reporting Belichick has an extension. That's basically the scuttlebutt. Have you heard Belichick got an extension? Yeah, I think I heard that, but I don't know. No one knows.
right. So, how much longer do you think he's going to coach? And dude, I'm going to keep bugging you about this. You probably forgot, but I bug everybody about this. Steve Belichick. I believe, this is my irresponsible conspiracy theory, I believe Belichick is setting up Bill is setting up Steve to become the head coach when he retires.
It's not that far-fetched. I mean, you're creeping closer to being correct. I think Gerard Mayo might be that before him, but Steve actually called the defenses prior to Mayo, not prior to Mayo, instead of Mayo this year. So that's not half-cocked. Bill is probably...
Why was that? That was a change, but
because he's been a coach longer. My guess is he's been a coach longer. It wasn't a change. They both split it a little bit during preseason, but when the regular season started, it was Steve on the mic. So
now,
I don't know how much longer he's going to do it. I would say 3-4 years. I mean, he's 67. He doesn't rule out 70, so I don't know if he rules out 72, 73 either.
Yeah. So Tom Brady. And I'm going to let you go because we're going to keep you all damn day. I'd love to keep you all damn day. And thanks for bringing Bo, by the way. But
that's right. Where's Danny? Danny, come back here. My son, he's home on break from
awesome.
What are you doing?
I'm going to the library to study for the LSATs.
Do you have to go? He's studying for the LSATs.
Wow, sounds like fun.
Come on in, Dan. Say hi to Brooksy.
How's it going, Brooksy?
How you doing, Danny?
Good.
Good luck on this test. Have fun today, by the way.
Thank you. I will try.
Thoughts and prayers.
Where's your stuff? Do you need to get it?
Yes, let's go.
Oh, all right, bro.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
Love you.
There's no substitute for this stuff right here. This is what makes the show right here. And Bo.
That's why it's a fun show.
You damn straight it is. And so now you can shoot me down on this, but Brady looked awful against the Dolphins, but I didn't think he looked that bad in the playoff game. And I mean, he's a serviceable guy, but what's your assessment of Brady right now, physically going forward?
Go past the Dolphins game. How did he look against the Bills? Lights friggin' out. Brady is certainly not even still. He's the smartest quarterback in the NFL. He's got every bit of arm strength, at least velocity-wise, that he needs. He's got enough pocket mobility, and I think that still has shown up that he's still got that. Probably better than it was 5-6 years ago because he spends time on it. What I think his biggest problem is the same thing that hits you and the same thing that hits me when we go out and we play something. Do I want to? I'm not getting into that. I'm not. He took a lot of hits this year.
Boy, the offensive line was a freaking disaster.
Took a lot of hits. And I think that really impacted. I think he got a little bit. He was a little self-protective, maybe more protective than he needed to be at some points because he knew it was him. Between the team success and failure was his health. So that would be my only concern for Brady in 2020. You got to get him back to a confident spot where he believes that guys are going to be open when they come out of a break. Because I think there's times he's looking at guys and goes, he's not going to get open. Right, I don't even think he knows where he's supposed to be. Boom, throws it into the cheerleaders.
Right. And it's like self-perpetuating.
Yes, and then there's probably a few where guys are going to break open and he bails on the play a little early.
I mean, and I talked to Bob about this yesterday, and he brought up the Eagles press conference. And at the time, of course, I've got the pitchfork and the torch out, and I'm killing Brady. He's a selfish guy. But in the very back recesses of my mind, at that time, it was, this really is kind of ominous for the team, and this is a little foreshadowing, I think, for the season. And boy, it turned out to be. And I think to a certain extent, I think I was a little unfair to him. One last thing. McDaniels, if he does end up leaving, who's the OC?
No idea. Zero, none.
Really?
I have no idea. Maybe Mick Lombardi, Mike's kid, was, he's been on the staff. But I think that'd be a reach in terms of experience. Chad O'Shea was in Miami, obviously with the Patriots for a long time as a wide receivers coach. Maybe he could come back. Friggin' Mike Groh just got shit canned by the Eagles. Obviously, there's another Groh on the staff on the personnel side right now, and Bill and Al go way back. But you'd have to throw the names in a little basket and shake them up. I don't know who it would be. Joe Judge?
Dude, you never know. Who the hell knows with the Patriots? But what about McCarthy? I mean, that's a joke, right? Hiring that guy. And I was going to throw a media guy under the bus. I'm not going to do it. But, I mean, wasn't that really Jerry getting a guy who's he can control and using McCarthy's Super Bowl ring as a shield against everybody?
That's a good point. When you talk about the ability to control the guy, you look at him, he's a Pittsburgh guy, tough guy, and he'll stand up. But if you are hiring a guy who's been out for a little while and is desperate to get back in and may not have a lot of other options, he's over a barrel. He's over a barrel a little bit in terms of what he'll put up with. So maybe you're right. I've been so, honestly, Brooksy, I'm so forehead deep on the Patriots that I barely even look up to see what's going on with the other teams at this point.
And that's why you're here, man. I can't freaking thank you enough. Thank you so much, Tom. I really, really appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Great hearing from you. Happy New Year.
I'll talk to you soon. That's Tom Curran of NBC Sports Boston, the best, the gold standard, the OG, as I keep saying, the Oracle. How many more times? How many more descriptions? But I can't say enough about the guy. What a freaking show. Great job by our producer, Cam Smith, today. Thank you so much, Cam. Stellar job. As good a guest lineup as there is anywhere in the country today. And look, I understand if you watch this show, Jesus, Brooks exaggerates. Boy, oh boy, it's all about the hyperbole. Wow, over the top. This time, though, I'm not doing that. And I think I'm justified a lot of times. And a lot of times when I seem like I'm over the top, it's because I'm complimenting something or emphasizing something that nobody emphasizes, but that should be emphasized. That's really what this show's about. And so we pointed a lot of things out, for instance, with Pat McAfee, in terms of what he does, right? That's special. And it could come off as, Brooks is, kisses. I'm not kissing his ass, right? 30 years in the business. You're a sports radio talk show host. I'm not going to kiss your ass. Mainly because everybody's the same. Everybody's the same. No idea who's talking when I'm listening to your show. Are you worried about your boss in the broadcast rights agreement that your network has? Or are you trying to stage some sort of theatrical production, like Rob Parker or whatever? No, but that's not what Pat's doing. And that's my whole point. So, and self-made. By the way, Cam, I don't know if you heard this. Did you hear when I brought up Twitter to Pat McAfee? And man, he broke it down. But a guy who has gotten results and knows how to make Twitter happen, right? And so Pat really confirmed a lot of things that I had thought about. It was pretty amazing today, and which was cool. So we'll be back tomorrow, and we've got more great guests. Check my Twitter account, SportsbyBrooks, to find out what the hell's going on. And again, thanks to everybody at Fancred and Cam Smith. Just this is like, I don't know, this is like we just pitched a one-hitter, right? No walks, 11 strikeouts. And that pulls the Reds into a tie with the Pirates for fourth place in the National League Central. But thanks again, Cam. And we will be back tomorrow at noon Eastern time. We do this weekdays, 9 Pacific. I'm live in Los Angeles. Duh, right? My name is Brooks Melchior. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. And this has been Sports by Brooks on Fancred.